All right, let's jump right into this. We're going to dig into some ideas about heart health that might really surprise you. We're looking at two big things that pretty much flip conventional wisdom on its head. First, what arterial plaque actually is, and second, whether aiming for that perfect blood pressure number could, believe it or not, be dangerous for some people. So, right out of the gate, the source material hits us with this really bold claim. The whole idea is that we've been thinking about our arteries all wrong. We picture them like kitchen pipes getting clogged with grease. But the argument here is that it's just not that simple. It's a much more complex biological process. And this leads us to what the sources call the plaque paradox. To make sense of this, they tell us a story about a man named Gerald. His case is a perfect example of how the numbers on a lab report might be telling you one thing while something totally different is happening inside your body. So get this. Gerald does everything right for 9 years. He's on his meds, his doctor says his LDL cholesterol numbers are excellent, but when they look at his arteries, the plaque is still getting worse. It just keeps on growing. This really makes you ask, right? If lowering the LDL number isn't stopping the plaque, then what is the real problem here? And this is where things get really interesting. The common belief is that it's a plumbing problem, a simple clog. But the source claims it's actually a biological one. It's your own immune system reacting. So forget the idea of grease in a pipe. This is more like an immunological war being waged inside the wall of your artery. The key villain in this story, according to the source, isn't cholesterol itself, but this specific type called oxidized LDL. They call it rusted cholesterol, which is a great way to think about it. It's basically a normal cholesterol particle that's been damaged. Once it's damaged, your immune system doesn't recognize it anymore. It sees it as an enemy invader and launches a full-blown attack. So here's how it goes down. This rusted cholesterol gets into the artery wall. Your body sends in the cleanup crew, these immune cells called macrophages, to get rid of it. But the problem is they go overboard. They just gorge themselves on this rusted cholesterol until they get so bloated and dysfunctional, they turn into these things called foam cells. And it's these dead and dying foam cells that pile up and actually form the dangerous, nasty core of the plaque. It's wild. The body's attempt to fix the problem is what creates the problem. So, if plaque is really an immune problem, how do you deal with it? Well, the source suggests targeting those specific biological pathways. The idea isn't to roto-rooter your arteries. It's about using specific foods to help your body's own systems do their job, removing that bad cholesterol and cooling down all that inflammation. So the source lays out this 3-part meal protocol, and each piece has a very specific job. You've got nitrates from things like arugula or beets to help your blood vessels relax and open up. Then you have this special high-phenolic olive oil to help your immune cells basically spit out the cholesterol they've eaten. And finally, vitamin K2, which plays traffic cop and directs calcium into your bones instead of letting it harden in your arteries. Now, about that olive oil claim. This isn't just some vague idea. The source points to a major study called the PREDIMED trial, and what they found was pretty stunning. The group that added high phenolic olive oil to their diet saw a 30% drop in heart attacks and strokes compared to the group on a standard low-fat diet. 30%! That's huge. But wait, it gets even more dramatic. The source makes this incredible claim about pomegranates. They point to a clinical trial, a small one, but still significant, that showed pomegranate didn't just slow down plaque, it actually reversed existing plaque buildup in people's arteries. We're talking about physically dissolving it. Okay, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. The source warns that chugging a commercial pomegranate juice won't do the trick. It's often pasteurized and full of sugar. The real magic, they argue, is in the bitter white pith, in the peel, the parts we all throw away. That's where the highest concentration of these powerful compounds is apparently hiding. Okay, let's switch gears. That was a deep dive into plaque. Now we're going to tackle the second big idea from the source material, the conventional wisdom around blood pressure, especially when it comes to older adults. And to make this point, the narrative shifts to an equally challenging idea, anchored by the heartbreaking story of a woman named Eleanor. Her experience is used to really question that one-size-fits-all approach to blood pressure, and to show how being too aggressive can have devastating consequences. This timeline really illustrates what happened. Eleanor's doctor gets her blood pressure down to that perfect number, 122/78. But then she starts getting dizzy whenever she stands up. One day, that dizziness leads to a fall, and she breaks her hip. From there, it was all downhill. She ended up getting pneumonia during recovery and sadly passed away. It was a complete cascade of events, all starting with the pursuit of a perfect number. So what's going on? The source contends that the issue isn't just the pressure number itself, it's the condition of the arteries. Think about it. As we get older, our arteries naturally get stiffer, less flexible. The source argues that to safely push blood up to the brain, especially when you stand up quickly, those stiffer arteries might actually need a slightly higher pressure. It's the body's way of compensating. Okay, so if arterial stiffness is the problem, what's the solution? Well, the source says it's not about trying to reverse the stiffness, but about adjusting our targets. Instead of one perfect number for every single person, maybe the goals should change as we age and depend on our overall health. And just look at this table. It gives you a super clear side-by-side comparison. On one side, you have the standard target, which is usually less than 120. But on the other, you have the source's recommendations. And you can see as people get older, the safe number actually goes up, which totally flies in the face of that lower is always better mantra we hear all the time. So, what's the real takeaway here? It's that your ability to function safely in the world should be the number one priority, not just hitting a specific number on a medical chart. For an older person, the source argues that the immediate catastrophic risk of a fall from dizziness is a much bigger threat than the long-term statistical risk of a slightly higher blood pressure. And all of this brings us to the source material's really powerful conclusion, which is all about finding your body's true north. It's a call to action to stop just chasing numbers on a lab report and to start listening to your underlying biology, to shift our focus from just managing symptoms to actually addressing the root cause. And so ultimately, we're left with this really provocative question from the source material. It's a question for all of us to think about. Are we just managing the numbers, the cholesterol level, the blood pressure reading, or should the real goal be to understand and maybe even reverse the biological processes that are causing the problem in the first place? Something to think about.